on this professional development. This is a platform that was established by the SAAPS president, Dr. Ongama Mtinka, as a way to provide early career, emerging scholars, students, anyone really who's in the discipline of political science and international relations with a foothold on how to navigate this academic landscape that we are all a part of. And so I think we all mostly have the theoretical knowledge, and I think for the most part, especially for this session today, we want to actually get into the nitty-gritties. What are the practical steps that we need as scholars and as students to be able to thrive within our fields? So this afternoon session will be focused primarily on publishing within academia, and we'll be trying to unpack the mindset of what it means to be a productive scholar, how to target the right outlets, as well as how to navigate the peer review sphere, the infamous second reviewer, as well as how to brand ourselves as scholars. So this afternoon online, we have 3 accomplished academics from 3 different institutions. I will now be providing a brief overview of their work. They've done a lot of things. First up, one of our panelists is Professor Bhaso Ndzendze. Professor Ndzendze is a professor of politics and international relations and is the Vice Dean of Internationalization in the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Joburg. He has pre-politics and international relations at UJ. He is also a lead researcher for IR and Digital Policy Research Unit for DPRU within the Department of Politics and International Relations. His other affiliations include being a visiting professor at Carleton University in Canada, as well as a political analyst at Africa Policy Research Institute in Berlin, Germany. He also serves as the deputy editor and chief for the Journal of Contemporary African Studies and as an advisory policy member for the Council for the Advancement of South African Constitution. Prof Ndzendze is an NRF-rated academic who has published multiple books, book chapters, journal articles, as well as opinion pieces on world politics with a focus on international territorial disputes, trade, and technologies. Welcome this afternoon to Professor Ndzendze. Our second panelist this afternoon is Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Professor Breakfast is the head of department for history and politics and an associate professor at Nelson Mandela University. He is the former head of School for Security and African Studies at Stellenbosch University, where he was responsible for the management of 3 departments as well as supervising heads of department. Professor Breakfast has published locally and internationally in accredited journals. More specifically, he has published about 52 peer-reviewed accredited articles, with about 50 of them being accredited to the Department of Higher Education in South Africa. And he also has 6 book chapters. That's amazing. I'm sure a lot of us are going to want to really find out exactly how he did that. In addition to this, Professor is also a political analyst on multiple platforms like the BBC, News Central, NBC, Sputnik, SABC, ENCA, Power FM, Cape Talk, City Press, Mail and Guardian. The list is honestly quite endless. Professor Breakfast, thank you so much as well for being a part of this panel. And last but certainly not least, we have online as well Professor Namhla Matshanda, who is an associate professor in the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria. She is an interdisciplinary scholar with an interest in political history for the Horn of Africa and with a specific focus on Ethiopia. She holds a PhD in African Studies from the University of Edinburgh, an MA in International Relations from the University of Witwatersrand, and a BA Honours degree from the University of the Western Cape. Prof Matshanda is a C2 NRF rated researcher, with her research primarily focused on the late colonial period, specifically how the legacies of this period influence present-day processes of state and nation building in the Horn of Africa. Her work has sought to challenge the narrative of Ethiopian exceptionalism by locating the study of Ethiopia within African studies. Her research has been published in leading international journals like the Journal for East African Studies, African Affairs, Nations and Nationalism, and others. One thing she did forget to add in is that she's also the editor-in-chief for Politicon. Prof Matshanda, thank you so much for also joining us online for this session. Okay, before we begin, I wanted to also provide our audience with a brief format for this session. So immediately following this, we'll have a little bit of a discussion and engagement with our three speakers. There will be a series of questions that will be posed not only to the entire panel, but also to specific panelists online. And then we'll go into the highly anticipated session, which is the Q&A session, where you as the audience get to ask your own questions. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat or raise your hand when we get to that portion. Please also include your name, affiliation, as well as who the question is addressed to. And then after that, we'll get to our least favorite portion, which is the closing and thanks. Unfortunately, all good things will have to come to an end, but I'm sure during this whole session, we will get valuable insights. Okay, without further ado, we can get into the meat and potatoes of this discussion and the open-ended question to everyone. I'm going to take off my chairing hat for a little bit and speak as an academic, an emerging scholar academic, new to the field. I think, and a lot of people would feel that they haven't yet found their feet when it comes to writing and publication. So when you look back at your experience publishing and writing, as well as your journey as a scholar, when did, this thing of writing and publishing, when did it actually start making sense for you? When did it, click that, I'm a scholar, I'm a writer? When did you sort of change the direction and the way in which you wrote things? Now you're writing with intention, you have that gravitas. Like when exactly did that, shift happen? I will start with Prof Matshanda, ladies first, if you could let us know your thoughts or reflections on your journey.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And good afternoon to colleagues on the panel, and good afternoon to our online audience as well. Well, firstly, thank you to the organizers of the session, to the president of SAAPS. I think it's very timely, it's very relevant. So well done to you. To answer your question, wow, when did it start? When did it click? I would say that for me, the click happened, or the shift happened when I started writing for enjoyment. Because when you come into academia, of course, you know that there is this expectation to write and to publish and to contribute knowledge. But it's all very mechanical. You kind of feel the pressure to do it. So for me, I think the click or the shift happened when I started writing for enjoyment. I started to enjoy the process. So enjoying the reading, the thinking process, the writing process. Because I think if you write for enjoyment, or rather if you if you write for enjoyment and you enjoy the entire process, then the writing improves. I think the writing improves if you are writing with less with the pressure, less with the expectation that you have to write a certain amount, a certain number of papers or publish a certain number of books. So yeah, very briefly, I would say that the shift happened when I started writing for enjoyment. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof. Matshanda. I think that's also quite new for us as academics to, write from enjoyment. We're writing from this place of, let's write, technically, let's get it right. Let's write in an academic fashion. So thinking about it as, writing for enjoyment is actually quite profound. Professor Breakfast, when would you say that shift, happened for you? When did it start making sense for you?
First of all, let me congratulate Dr. Mtimga and his team for arranging a platform of this magnitude. I so wish that when I started, I was set down by someone who was more senior than me and who told me about the do's and don'ts of playing this game, because I never had that mentorship, to be honest. So for me, I've always wanted to be an academic. That's why, and I'm not saying that this is the only way, because I don't want to come across to be narrow-minded, but I studied throughout the years from first year until PhD, because becoming an academic has always been a response to the call of duty. So what I do is something that I do for fun. So what I did after, so I started from first year until PhD, and then I got a job to be a junior a lecturer, and then I tried to team up with senior academics for purposes of intellectual exchange, because when you are a junior academic, you don't know about the do's and don'ts. You don't know where to send the articles to, how to package them. Remember, the thesis is pitched to a different audience.
That's
and
so true.
The articles are a different kettle of fish. So my advice to the up-and-coming scholars is try a level. But at the same time, you've got to be strategic. You've got to be very strategic. One, you cannot team up with senior scholars all the time, because that will catch up with you. In what way? When you apply for a promotion, because I sit over these applications and so on, you have to demonstrate that, one, you can team up with other scholars, because that has a meaning. It means that, first of all, that you are a team player. Two, you also have to have your own articles, because that signifies that you have a voice. You cannot publish with other people all the time. But also when you publish with other people, especially when you are senior all the time, it does, look, I'm not trying to open a can of worms, but it does give a wrong impression that maybe you are appropriating now the work of your students, which is, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm not saying that don't take them by hand and walk with them. But what I'm saying, that when you start team up with the senior scholars, because for instance, I'm not trying to blow my trumpet, but at the moment, I am a guest editor of 3 journals. So when you make a call, whether an article needs to go through peer review or not, you look at how the abstract is packaged. If the abstract is not well structured, that's a turn-off, right? So teaming up with the senior scholars then helps you, because sometimes you find that the article is being rejected, not because there's no line of argument which is put forward, but because the abstract is not well structured. There is no alignment between the abstract and the title, and so on. So I think those do's and don'ts, you can learn them from that partnership. And then also but let me make this last point. Sorry, I don't want to be carried away. Let me make this last point. Now, which journals then, or I'm sorry if I'm trying to play the card before the horse, But the other question is, of course, I mean, I'm asking my own question, but which journals do you target? Because that is also extremely important. That is a strategic question. Because if you target those best of the best journals on a global scale, hey, maybe you will publish one article every 5 years or one article every 3 years. Because the queue is long there. So you've got to be strategic. My view is that target the local ones which are accredited. You gain the confidence. You learn the rule, because science is like a game. If you want to master any game, you must understand the rules of that particular game. You can be intelligent and academically be gifted. If you don't understand the rules of the game, you will fall short. So I'm saying target the local journals, at least in my view, publish between 5 or 10. Then you are able then to send your stuff on a global scale. When you know now how to package arguments and so on, how to embed your argument in a particular theoretical framework and so on.
Thank you so much, Prof. That was a mouthful, but I really liked the fact that teaming up with senior academics is also a way in which, you know, things started to click for you and to make sense, because they can actually like guide you through like what are the do's and don'ts, what are the rules of the game that you should actually be doing. Prof Ndzendze, you haven't been forgotten. For you, when did, you know, writing and publishing, when did it make sense for you?
Thank you, Chair. I hope you'll forgive me. I'm using my phone.
Not a problem.
I left my laptop at a book launch. We were launching another book earlier today, and I left in a hurry to come to this meeting, actually. Let me also congratulate the SAAPS team for this initiative. I hope it is sustained and long-lasting. So I think my colleagues have sort of beat me to the punch on some of these areas, that you must enjoy writing, but you must also write strategically. But where it clicked for me for academic writing, because remember, you may enjoy writing, but perhaps you enjoy writing for, let's say, for newspapers, but the university doesn't quite recognize that, unfortunately. And so where it clicked for me was in making, in establishing that fact that for the purposes of the university, in fact, we don't even call them publications here at the University of Johannesburg, and I'm sure it's the same at NMU and at UP. We call them units, okay? We call them units. It's distilled down, whether it's a chapter, whether it's a book, whether it is a journal article, it must fit into the description of a unit. It must be peer-reviewed, and then there's other requirements. If it's a chapter, you must have the letter of that peer review, and you must have the manuscript and the comments. You must keep the comments. So it was understanding that academic publishing is also administrative, and it is fitting into the university's objective of publishing work that is accredited. Prof Breakfast mentioned accredited. Maybe that's the point I'm making as well, that it was in recognizing that there's the writing that you do that's important, but there's also then the writing that is recognized by the university. And I think that's an important lesson, so that you don't expand too much energy on something that won't pay off for you. So you must, as Prof Breakfast, understand, understand the rules of the game, and understand the mold of what that means. So thank you very much. I'll keep it there for now.
Thank you so much, professors. That, I think, illuminates that, you know what, it will make sense. You know, we will get there. We won't be floundering in the waters of academia too long. So colleagues in the audience, please don't worry. We will all get there. Prof Matshanda, I wanted to ask another question for you specifically. For us as scholars, as students who are writing within these two disciplines, there's this underlying tension between having to publish, you know, a lot you have to, meet your KPIs. So you have to definitely publish a lot. But then at the same time, you also want to, target accredited journals and, really make a name for yourself, have a niche within the field. How do we balance these two? Is it better to build up the strong profile with lots of, academic units early on, or should we focus more on developing our niche? I know it's not like it's either or, there's definitely nuance there, but I guess it's how do we balance this nuance? How do we carefully strike the balance and manage these tensions?
Thank you, Chair. I think that is one of the most fundamental questions in publishing, the quantity versus quality debate. That's what they call it. It's a tough one. And I would say there is no generalizable answer. It's really specific to individuals. As you can see, if you look at the profiles of maybe all three of us, or just any academic, if you go to any department and you see the publishing profile of academics, it's all, it varies. So the approach also varies. It is advisable to try and do both, to aim for quality as well as quantity, if you can. But I think it's also quite permissible to aim for quality, if you want. If quantity is not necessarily your main main motivating factor, you can absolutely aim for quality, which means, like Prof Breakfast had said, you're probably going to publish every 5 years if you are publishing in those high-ranking journals. So you can do both, and so this is where I think I might slightly disagree with Prof Breakfast in terms of targeting only local journals. I think you should definitely target international journals as well. Especially in our discipline, I think it's not impossible to get in there in those high-ranking international journals. It's not it's difficult, but it's not impossible. So if you trust your paper, if it's a solid paper you want to submit, or a book proposal, or whatever the case it may be, you shouldn't limit yourself to only the locally based, because again, when it comes to issues of promotion and what goes onto your CV, it also matters. The quality also comes into play. So it's not just quantity that comes into play when it comes to issues of promotion or etc., or rating, for example. So quality also becomes considered, and not that the local journals are not quality, but in terms of their ranking, in terms of their impact factors, etc., etc. So an international journal might carry more weight, etc. So if you can try to balance both quality and quantity, because you need both.
That is so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
Prof Breakfast. Let's say you have a student who's coming to you and they haven't published before. This is their very first time that they're publishing to a locally based accredited journal. There's obviously the things that we know as scholars that we need to have as part of our papers. We have to have a solid argument. The structure of our paper has to include, an introduction, the body, the conclusion. There needs to be, you need to make sure that your references are correct and correct to the journal that you're actually, writing to. So there's fundamental things that we as scholars and as writers know that we have to do. Would you say that there's some non-obvious things that, especially young scholars who are just starting out might not get right? What may trip us up and, maybe not get our papers selected for these different types of journals?
Thank you very much for that question. First things first, publishing internationally is extremely important. I think I was misunderstood there, or I didn't explain my point the way I should have. And I'm sorry about that. But publishing internationally is, I mean, how do you become a professor without publishing on a global scale? You cannot. So publishing internationally is of paramount importance. The point I was making is that you need to start locally to gain the confidence so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls. So that's why I said your first 5 or 10 articles are of paramount importance. So I think that must be noted. Coming back to your question now, obviously, I mean, the packaging of your article is key. And you know, you need to have a thick skin because sometimes the feedback is really very robust, very, and personal. And sometimes personal. And sometimes you find that some of the reviewers, they've got positions, ideological. I mean, for instance, you know, I like to write from a standpoint of critical theory, so like a question power and so on, you know. And you find that, I mean, you can see that not the backlash, but the rigor that you are getting is not about quality, but it's about the issue of a positionality. And there is a way out of that. What I normally do is that, because you have to also demonstrate intellectual humility, that you accept the points made, blah, 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 but explain to the editor, you know, that, listen, yeah, I don't, there's nothing wrong about that. I don't agree with this. This is not what I'm saying. Because sometimes you can be misunderstood. You have to explain, no, I'm not saying this. This is what I, you see, for instance, some you find some reviewers saying that you write like you are writing for a newspaper, there are no enough sources. But then the question that begs is, how are you going to advance arguments? How are you going to add new insights if you are quoting people left, right, and center? So you have to frame a discourse and put forward a particular argument. And then if then there is that kind of backlash, then you can explain to the editor that, no, I mean, I don't agree with this, as long as you do it in a very a professional way. So those are some of the things that maybe the colleagues who are still up and coming might not know. Not that they are not good, not that they are not gifted, but I think maybe it's the lack of experience. I'm sorry to put it that way. Yeah, I think those are some of the pitfalls. I mean, lastly and most important, you know, there was a time when I, and I'm not ashamed to share this, I once applied to be a professor at Stellenbosch, and I didn't know what the panel is going to look at. And there were a lot of recommendations that were made, and I was not promoted. But you know, that feedback, it empowered me. It really empowered me. And when I applied the second time, of course, not I had already gone there, but I was able to circumvent the criticism. So also, when things don't go according to plan, don't feel bad and don't be too hard on yourself. Don't personalize things. You know, yeah, it's not the end of the world.
Prof, it's easy to say when you have, 52 articles. But I think maybe touching on a little bit around the, having confidence in yourself to be able to humbly say to, the reviewer that I don't, necessarily agree with your standpoint or your ideology. How do we as, younger upcoming scholars, how do we build that confidence? Because yes, I might know the theory quite well, but like, pushing back humbly and saying, no, my position is just as valid. That's tricky. That's, it's tricky to do.
Yeah, okay, can I just make this last? You see, you must remember, as academics, knowledge is an ideological construct. We subscribe to different frameworks as scholars. For instance, I mean, even the question that you were asking earlier on about quality vis-a-vis quantity, it's a political question. You see, for instance, when scientific knowledge rose to prominence it rose to prominence at the same time with the capitalist mode of production, and it became institutionalized, and it became the order of the day. Even today, that's why many universities, they look at how many output. That is a quantitative, it's an ideological matter, even that one, because it's like a neoliberal approach of number. So there are those dialectical tensions in terms of quality vis-a-vis quality. That's why I think maybe the first port of call, or the first thing that you need to do, is just to identify someone or work with someone that you are in good terms with. A person is going to be, not a person is going to shoot you down and not be fair to you, who can walk this journey with you. And then after maybe some, in my view, maybe some 8 or 10, then you can run by yourself, and then be firm, and be very firm. You write to an editor and say, because if I'm an editor, I cannot make you to write my own article. If I want to write my own article, I write my own article. But I cannot make you, through peer review, write my own article. Because that is also important, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Prof Breakfast. Prof Ndzendze, during our conversation now that we've been having so far, we've spoken about obviously writing for journal articles, but there's more to sort of academic writing. There's writing for books, there's book chapters, there's policy work. How would us as the younger generation, how are we able to switch between the two formats? Because obviously there's specific rules between those, different types, these different genres of writing. How do we, I'm not sure how to phrase it, how do we skillfully and easily work through these different formats?
Thank you very much, Melissa. So formats is that you must have genuinely new knowledge that you are bringing forward. So whether it's a book, whether it's a chapter in an edited book, whether it's a journal article, you are not simply regurgitating knowledge that's already out there. You are presenting something genuinely new. It then takes different modalities, right? Mm-hmm. For a book chapter, you would have been responding to a call for chapters, and you would have studied what the thematic areas are, and you'll submit accordingly and exercise a bit of patience for that whole process to play out. Your abstract is accepted. You now get into writing the full chapter, submit, bit of patience again, peer review comments, rework, resubmit. I will say the chapters in an edited book is the most supportive, friendly process. It's the most developmental. It's where I think people who are just starting out, that's where they should aim for. They should aim at. And then with a journal article, it's more or less the same process, but here you are studying the aims and scope of the journal. Professor Matshanda has got very clear aims and scope for Politicon. You go there so that you're not bringing her things that are totally irrelevant to the direction that she's taking the journal. So you study the aims and scope, and then you produce quality work. You submit quality work that has got something genuinely new to present, because journals have got so many pages that they can print out. Why would they spend so much resources printing information that's already out there? It has just been repackaged. Sure. So it's the most intensive. You're competing for space. An edited book can be as big as, within reason, of course. I've seen edited books up to 1,000 pages. But maybe I'll come back to that point about on the notion of publishing strategically. Whereas with journals, you are targeting an issue might maybe be 100 pages thereabout, which means they can only take 5, 6, 7, 8 at most about 12 articles. So you're competing for space there, but you want to submit quality work. You want to submit genuinely something new. You must ask yourself, what new thing? If I was on the other side as an editor, what new thing here? Because journals want to, be the places where some new idea was first published in their journal, right? New theory, a new approach, a new methodology, whatever the case may be, underexplored case studies. And then the third one, which is my personal favorite, writing a book, because there you are in firm control of as much as one can be compared to these three genres. You look at your ideas across, let's say, 8 chapters that would be on the same idea with continuity and with each of the chapters linking to the next. Have I got a big idea that can fill up this, and maybe filling up is not the right word. I don't want it to be like you're chasing word counts and so on, but have I got a book worthy idea? And then you write out your samples. Most publishers want typically 2 chapters plus the introduction, sample chapters, and then they'll have a form. But all those forms are basically the same thing. You are summing up the book, what's new, what's original about the book, and why should this book be published and published now? What books are competing? But I don't like the language of competing. What books are complementary, I think is the right word. Because it's not like once your book is published, they're going to go and pull the other books out of their shelves. So it's what books are you going to be in conversation with? What's the literature that you're contributing to, more or less? And who's going to buy this book? Which universities are going to prescribe this book? Which associations are going to prescribe this book? Or where will this book be launched so that it goes to as many people in your field as much as possible? Then you submit. And again, here you can submit to the publisher on a general basis, or you can look for book series. I was talking to another younger scholar who's converting a PhD into a book earlier this week. We were looking at different book series. Routledge has got a lot. Springer has got a lot. So in whatever area you're working on, there's probably a book series. Springer, Routledge, Palgrave, Macmillan have got a book series for it that's got you covered. And you get in touch with the commissioning editor there, and you submit. It's again also quite a supportive process, but you must have those sample chapters ready and make sure it's your best foot forward, because it'll go to a board. The board will evaluate this rigorously, and again ask themselves that same question: what new thing is being presented here? But now back to the edited books. I mentioned they can get quite big.
Yeah.
So for someone starting out, it's one of those decision areas. I think it depends on what you do or what you want to accomplish in the immediate. But I would say still do it. But the problem with large edited books is that it means less unit value for yourself and your university. Okay, so the book has got 10 chapters. DOHED stops subsidizing from chapter 11 upwards, and you all have to share that subsidy. The universities have to share that subsidy. I wouldn't worry too much about this as a person who's just starting out, because what you want is the experience of publishing. And maybe I want to touch on the quality-quantity question as well.
Yes, please.
My view is quantity is fine. You'll be forgiven if in your first 2 years post-PhD, but just avoid predatory journals. Go to the list. I hope everyone knows there's a list, an Excel list. You can simply Google it. DHET Accredited Journals 2026. It's updated every year. Make sure wherever you want to publish, it is there, because it's the same money for the university, more or less. It's the same money. The universities don't fret too much about this. So no one will look at you funny if as a young scholar. I mean, some might, but I think for your longer term trajectory, you want to get into the habit of publishing and then improve that habit. But you want to develop, you can't improve a skill you've not had before. So publish, I think, wherever there's good opportunity, within reason, of course. You can't be a political scientist and be publishing in a physics journal, let's say. I think you want to stay within reason, within the realm of the social sciences, and But this is an important point then that will become salient later down the road when you are applying for your NRF rating. You heard the colleagues' NRF ratings being stated, and maybe we can talk about that in this or another session, where the NRF will say, in this person's body of work, is there a running thread? Are they contributing to a core area, right? A core area. And it's one of the decisions you will have to make, whether to include all these publications in your submission. But I think it's important, as I wrap up, it's important to publish and publish in relevant places and not stress too much in your first, let's say, 2 years post PhD about sticking too closely to what area you want to specialize in, because sometimes actually you're not even sure, right? I think people,
That's true.
if you look at people's PhDs and what they work on now, it's quite different. So I'll end it there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Prof Matshanda and Prof Breakfast. Prof Ndzendze said that he enjoys writing books. I want to find out, what do you guys enjoy writing? Is it books, book chapters, articles, writing for things like, the conversation, maybe just to give our audience like a look inside your mind and, what, you favor? Maybe we can start with Prof Matshanda.
Thanks, Chair. Before I answer your question, something Prof Ndzendze just mentioned, the post PhD, this is an experience that most people might have. I definitely had it. I had no idea where I want to go in terms of the core focus of my research. I was fumbling for the first 3 years or so after PhD. I was still figuring out, how to take the PhD to the next level. What insights from the PhD can I kind of, build my research around going forward? So yeah, something to really relate to up and coming researchers and scholars. It's a very difficult phase, the post PhD phase, especially when you're trying to find your niche area. It takes time, but please be patient with yourselves. You will get there. But as Prof Ndzendze is saying, just keep writing, keep in the habit of writing and publishing until something clicks. Something will eventually click, and it may come from from unexpected sources where the click comes from. It may come from a collaboration with someone. It may come from a conference. It may come from somewhere. But there will be that click, and then you will finally settle on a niche area, and then you start building it. Which helps with building a coherent body of work. Yeah. To answer your question about which is my favorite, I don't know. Yeah. Well, just a proviso, by the way, I haven't written a book.
Okay.
Just to so I haven't gone through that experience yet. So I wouldn't but the way Prof Ndzendze is describing it, it sounds like it's a very interesting process, a very fascinating process. So my experience has been with all the different other formats, the journal, the book chapters, the conversations, your occasional policy brief and whatnot. It all depends. I mean, I enjoy writing, and I'm very much proud of most of what I've produced because the process itself is very fulfilling. It's very hard. I'm not going to romanticize it either. It's a very difficult process, but because you have that that goal and objective of yes, contributing to knowledge production, and yes, getting that unit, but you're also doing something quite meaningful in the process. So I enjoy it, whether it's a journal article, whether it's writing for the conversation, which I do occasionally. So I enjoy the different formats. Yeah.
And you, Prof Breakfast, which would you say is your most preferred writing platform?
Yeah, so I wouldn't pick and choose this one over that one, because you have to strike that balance. Otherwise, you are. I mean, imagine when you're applying now to be a professor, and you say, but you've only published article. These processes of promotion, they can be very political, very personal sometimes. So you need to cover your back as well. So when you publish, you've got to publish a strategic. I mean, I agree with the view that there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. You have to have thick skin, discipline, have to work hard, and have to make sure that you don't throw in the towel, because the feedback sometimes that you get, it can break you down if you are a weak person. Someone just sent me something feedback now that I write like I'm writing a love letter. So yeah, so you have to be strong, but I think maybe on my end, because of the on a lighter note, because of the pressure that I've been getting, I had to write a book, and also because of the pressure, I had to look for a good, so-called, arguably a good publisher. It was with a Palgrave, unfortunately, I mean, you have to play within the rules of the game, but sometimes, the danger is that, I don't know, this becomes a political issue, the issue of quality vis-a-vis quantity, because part of me thinks like things that sometimes we look for validation, as Africans, do we need to be, because these so-called best of the best journals, let's face it, are European journals.
Sure.
And how do we reconcile that with the Africanization of the canon and decolonization? Are we not becoming like what Frantz Fanon calls the mimic man, or the colonized intellectual that is looking for the validation of the West? I mean, on the continent, there are a lot of good journals there are a lot of good journals on the continent that are indexed by Scopus and so on. But people are, you find a person beating himself on the chest that I've published in this European journal and this and that. And I'm like, but you could have published that even on the Africa. So I think those are some of the power dynamics that we need to talk about in terms of what do we mean by the best of the best? What do we mean by a good journal, and whose standards are we using to gauge those so-called the best of the best? But coming back to your question before I wrap up, you have to publish across the board. You've got to publish across the board, yeah.
Thank you, professors. We've come to that time where we get to also hear from the audience and see what their questions are, their perspectives. So I'd like to open the floor to the audience. If you do want to ask a question, you are more than welcome to put your question in the chat box, or also raise your virtual hand, so that we can also hear from you what your burning questions are about writing and publishing and how to navigate this space. Please don't forget to tell us your name, your affiliation, as well as who the question is addressed to. Let's try and keep the contributions and the questions as concise as possible, so that we can get as many people to ask questions, so that, all of us are gratified and fed by, the experience that is on this panel. Okay, let me just also check if there's anything online on the chat. Are there any takers who would like to ask any questions to our panel? Yes, I have a hand from Beverly. You are more than welcome to go ahead.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon to Professor Matshanda. I am Beverly Adonis, and I am currently considering highly to do the PhD. However, I am interested in writing about migration. I'm not or at least what I'm thinking of is doing a few, write-ups, articles. I'm not quite sure exactly how long it must be. What I've done in the meantime, I've gathered some titles and some ideas of what I want to write about, but I'm not quite sure how, how they fit in, how I should structure it. Yeah, if I can get that kind of ideas maybe coming from all the professors or the scholars, I will be really happy. Thank you.
We also have a question from Dr. Mtinka. You can also go ahead, colleague.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Great session. Thanks a lot. Could each one of them give us about 3 journals that they've published in that they'd recommend? And Namhla is not allowed to say political.
All right. If there are no other takers, we will take this first round to the professors. I think the question from Beverly was sort of open-ended, so I think anyone from the panel can respond. Maybe we can start with Professor Ndzendze, apologies.
Thank you. So Beverly is no worries at all. So Beverly is thinking of doing a PhD in migration, from what I gathered, but I didn't quite get the rest of it. I must confess. Can you please reiterate for me?
Beverly.
Okay. Professor Matshanda used to be my supervisor.
Chair, am I still audible?
Yes.
Am I still audible, Chair?
Yes.
All right. So I wrote about the social systems of some groups here, migration groups here in Cape Town. And whilst I was doing this, I picked up on some other ideas that will make interesting articles, information that I can put forward. So now I've reached the phase where I'm thinking strongly of doing the PhD, and I want to use those ideas or those articles and kind of write several articles to get the PhD. Yes. So I used to be at Department of Political Studies at the University of the Western Cape, but now I'm moving over to a new department. So it will be great if I can have the guidance. It's all brand new, and I'm quite nervous about this. Just thinking of it makes me, very nervous. So I'll be really happy if I can get the input from you guys. That's experts. That's been around for many years. And Doc, you were saying something. Professor, you were saying something earlier. Professor Matshanda. I was giving up a job, and when I was doing the job, I realized that this is I now know where I need to go. I now know where, what I must actually do in this life. I don't know, you will know. It makes sense. It makes sense for me right now. Focusing on migration, you said, after your PhD, but I discovered, like right now after masters, this is the route that I must take. and it makes me really excited and nervous at the same time. But yeah, I need to know how to go about these things. Yeah, thank you. I hope it makes sense to you.
Yeah,
Prof.
I'm hearing you perfectly. So I think what you are highlighting is I think in South Africa it's not so well established, the notion of PhD by articles. I think it's something that most supervisors, most academics cautiously advise, because you are saying, Beverly, from what I'm understanding, you did your master's, then after your master's, you've remained curious, and you've then sort of drafted some articles, or you are thinking of drafting articles based on further developments, let's say, related to your master's, and you want to write those articles, but you want to do a PhD. So the PhD by articles would be an option here, but there's pros and cons. I think the challenge with this is that you're not so much in the driver's seat. A PhD is difficult enough as it is, and then you sort of have to wait for journals to process. I know colleagues who have taken 14 years doing their PhD by articles, actually, because just how lengthy and tedious the peer review process can be, and all sorts of things there. So I would say try to see if there's enough coherence among these articles, and then do your PhD by monograph, and then as part of your PhD, publish the articles as a by the way. And I think it'll put you in good standing post PhD. Should you want to then go into academia full time, you will have already published these articles, and they'll be on your CV. So I think try to see if there's enough coherence among the articles that you're thinking of writing, so that they can become part of the same PhD thesis. That would be my advice. But I think if you are braver than me, then you would go with the PhD by articles, and I would say look carefully for the university where that is done, where there's enough institutional support, institutional memory to be able to help a student and guide a student, to supervise a student who wants to do a PhD by articles. I hope I also got the gist of your question, Beverly, but my colleagues, I'm sure, will also shed further light. Thank you.
Prof Matshanda, you can go next.
Thanks, Chair. Well, Beverly, maybe I won't respond directly, but I will, I have a general response in terms of, I suppose, positioning your work and your choice of publication, outlets, and all of that. I would say it is key where you choose to publish your work. Regardless of the format, whether it's a book, an article, policy brief, or whatever. And it doesn't have to do with high impact factors or being international or whatever. So the impact factor or the international standing of the journal may or may not be a consideration when you're thinking about submitting a paper. I think it was mentioned earlier that there has to be some level of strategic positioning in general in publishing, but also in the actual selection of your choice of publication outlet. So where you have to ask yourself, many things about why you're publishing this particular piece of work. Some of the questions that have helped me in selecting a publication outlet is, for example, where do leading voices or some of the leading scholars in your field, in your area, where have they published? That is one consideration. You can also, where are some of the leading debates in your field? Where have they been published? In what journal? And where have they been previously published? So Some of these things are quite important. They help to position your work. So if you publish in those outlets, for example, then your work might get more attention. It might get more citations and all of that comes with publishing. So yeah, I'm sorry if I don't respond quite directly to the question.
Thank you, Prof Matshanda. Prof Breakfast, yes, would you also give your response to Beverly's question?
Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Beverly. I'm not familiar with this model. Excuse me, of doing a PhD by articles. But I've had colleagues, Dr. Mtimka can attest to this, even though, colleagues don't speak the same language. But I, for one, I'm very much open to this model, because there's a first time for everything. But I've never, I've supervised students at PhD level, but I've never supervised a person through this model of publishing articles. I'm not saying that it's a model that needs to be downplayed or anything of the sort. But I would concur with the argument by both colleagues that you have to publish in right places so that your work can gain credence and traction, and your framing of your argument and the structure of the thesis has to be on point, meaning that you have to have articles which are coherent and the packaging of the thesis. But I've never supervised a person at PhD level. I'm old school, so I can't unpack too much on that. But I wish you all the best, and may everything go well with you for doctoral studies.
While we still have you, Prof Breakfast, Dr. Mtinka asked about the yes.
Putting me on the spot. You are putting me on the hot seat here. So so Dr. Mtimka, my view, I cannot give you a direct answer for that, because my opinion is that each and every article that you submit to a journal, and this is one of the reasons why some articles are shot down or they are vehemently rejected, because I speak as a person with this experience of being an editor. An article has to be aligned to the focus or the scope of the journal. Journals have a scope. You see, for instance, I had an article. This is not a laughing matter, but I had an article that was, in fact, two that were rejected. And the argument was similar, that these articles are not aligned to the focus or the scope of these journals. So an article, so I can't say this one or that one, Dr. Mtimka, but what I can say is that make sure that the article is aligned to the scope and the focus of the journal. And then also, if that journal has credibility, as Dr. Bhaso Ndzendze indicated, that there is a list of the Department of Higher Education in terms of the accredited journals, and then you send it there. But on the sidelines, if you want us to engage as colleagues, we can talk. I can give you depending on what you have. For instance, there's a journal I know. There are many journals on Mtimka. Others they focus on nation building. Others they focus on African Renaissance. Others they focus on gender. Others they focus on conflict. There are journals which focus specifically on conflict. I see that one of my colleagues is also here. In the audience, Danielle Barnes, who did something together on a model of conflict management at local government level for the coalition formations. There's no way we could have sent it to any journal. We had to target the journal that focuses on that, which is conflict. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Prof Matshanda and Prof Ndzendze, do you guys have any preferred journal articles journals that you can recommend to Dr. Mtinka?
It is said not to recommend Polygon. Prof Matshanda, I can't recommend Polygon, but I will. I think it's a great journal. I've had the good fortune of publishing there. I will recommend Polygon. Look, I think maybe I can vouch for all the South African journals in our discipline of politics and international relations. I think all the journals are doing excellent work, whether it's Politicon, the South African Journal of International Affairs. I'll throw in there my former journal as well, the Journal of Contemporary African Studies. Whether it is Strategic Review for Southern Africa, whether it is the Journal of African Renaissance Studies, and of course the African Journal of Conflict Resolution, ran out of Accord, I believe, Accord, by my good friend Dr. Andrea Pra. They're also very supportive. I think all of these journals are quite supportive. But of course, you must give them good work to start off with. And none of them, I must say, none of them will give you special consideration because you are quote unquote emerging. They treat you like Journal of African Elections for those working on elections and democracy issues. So I think we are very lucky, and there's others I may have forgotten, maybe from the more historical side. There are a lot of journals that we are blessed with locally. My recommendation to someone who wants to get started, and this goes for whether you're undergrad, if we have any undergrads, or postgrad, the most practical way to reduce your anxieties and to learn the system is to write a book review. A book review, it's not accredited, it won't get you any units, but it shows, you basically write a review of a book that has come out in the last year, sometimes in the last 2 years, just check, and then you write to the relevant journal and say, I want to write a review on this book, and then they will give you a green light, and then you write your book review. It's serious scholarship. I mean, you're engaging with someone who's written a book, you're engaging with the ideas, and then you upload that, because journals have different systems. You upload that. Some may peer review the book review, others may not, but there will still be rigorous editorial standards being enforced, and you have to make revisions. And then you go through the process of making revisions, re-uploading, resubmitting the work, and then having the work proofread, the proof stage, and then seeing your work and your name in the table of contents of a journal. As a young person, I think it boosts your confidence. I think that's one of the things earlier in my own career that there was a good confidence booster, and it signaled that I'm on the right direction. And it just then becomes addictive, I would say. You learn the system, and your name is already published. When somebody Googles you, when somebody searches for the book, your review is right up there. And journal editors are not too insistent. They won't ask for your qualifications. They look for your review on its merits, and you can be published in that way. So I think that's just a little practical exercise you can do for yourself that's still very real and can have a huge impact for yourself. And I want to also advertise my own journal, which is now that I started and which is now accredited, and that's the Journal of Digital Policy Studies. For those of you interested in the role of technology and digital technologies in public service, in politics in general. I think I've given you more than the 3 that we asked for. Thank you.
Okay, we are almost done with time, and we do have 2 questions that came from the chat. So I'm going to quickly read them, and maybe if we can get our panel just to briefly say their last few sentiments to these 2 questions, and then we can wrap up. Our first question is from Raymond from UP. To anyone on the panel, any suggestions on how to find people to collaborate on writing? I ask because sometimes there is a lack of mentorship from supervisors about publishing, and sometimes departments work in silos and less collaboration. Thank you for your question, Raymond. And then our very last question is from Sibahle. Good afternoon. I'm Sibahle Ngwane, a master's candidate. Apologies, I joined the session a bit late. Welcome, though. I'm in the early stages of drafting an abstract. As a first-time author, what are common mistakes to avoid when trying to move from research into publication? I'm going to open the floor to Dr. Matshanda. You can, I think you've already answered Raymond in the first question. Maybe you can tackle the second one.
Right, yeah. Thank you, Chair. I did respond to Raymond. Yeah, going back to Dr. Mtinka's question, absolutely. I concur with colleagues. The local journals are very good, you know, any of them. But I have to say, from an editor's perspective, your article is one of many, right? And it absolutely has to stand out. As it has been mentioned before, you have to be very clear about the aim and scope of the journal in which you are submitting your paper. It has to align with the paper that you're submitting. You know, because there's so many submissions that we receive as journal editors. So when we go through the submissions, your paper has to, you know, meet certain requirements. It has to align with the aims and scope of our journal. It has to be of, you know, the arguments made have to be sound. It has to be of good quality. You know, technically, it has to be very sound. Your argument has to be sound. So you have to meet all those criteria so that your paper gets a chance at moving beyond, you know, just being received by the journal, but that it goes through the peer review process. So that's very important to understand the journal that you are submitting to. Well, you know, in relation to your paper. So you might think your paper is a politics related paper, but in fact it's a public administration paper. We receive quite a few public administration topics in Politicon, for example, and unfortunately we have to reject them because they fall outside of the aims and scope of the journal. So that's just one example. To respond to Sibahle, common mistakes to avoid when trying to move from research to publication. I think we can't overstate this enough. You have to know, you know, what is the aim of this piece of writing? Why are you writing this paper? If you're very clear about that, then the quality of the paper itself will be good. It will be focused because there's a clear intention of what this paper is about. Not writing because you feel like I have to write something, I have to submit something, I have to because, like I said, it is a difficult process, and it's very tough to get to publication. From the minute you submit your paper until publication, it's a long process. And as colleagues have mentioned, the feedback can be quite soul destroying at times. So you want to avoid that by making sure that the paper you submit is sound on so many different levels, technical, content-wise, you know, all round. A first-time author, just choose the journal carefully and make sure that you have a strong argument, that your contribution is clear, and choose your journal very intentionally, your publication. Thanks.
Thank you, Prof. I will go to Prof Breakfast. I think you also
Yes.
had your hand up for something else. Maybe you can address Sibashle and Raymond's questions and
Not a
just wrap
problem.
us up.
Thank you very much. So the second question was about the common mistakes which are made by up-and-coming scholars. So I think the first one is to basically pull out the same format of a thesis and then plugged it into a journal. Remember, the audience is different because immediately I think the editors will shoot that down. So you need to understand the structure of a journal, the packaging. You see, each and every article that you want to submit, it has to be a breath of fresh air, in my view, meaning it has to add new insights into scholarship. It has to contribute to whatever ongoing discourse. I think it was Professor Bhaso Ndzendze who said that do not regurgitate what is out there. You have to contribute. And the other mistake that is made by many up-and-coming scholars, in my opinion, and I know maybe I'm opening a can of worms, is to quote too much. You see, once you quote in each and every sentence, there is a source. You quote about things which are based on common knowledge. Like in 2010, there was a World Cup, you put a source there. Kaizer Chiefs lost against Paris, you put, but everyone knows about that. And you find that this person does not demonstrate that he or she can synthesize the scholarship. So those are some of the things that you have to avoid. So I think also don't downplay your introduction, because the introduction is a very important section because it sets the scene for the audience in terms of the main line of arguments that you are putting forward, and so and yeah, also engage as a peer theorist. And then the first question from is it Raymond? I think so. I think was about collaborations. You know what? Before that, there are also other good journals because you know it was Woodrow Wilson who said politics and administration are like two sides of the same coin. Some of the research which is done by political scientists cannot be published in some of the journals of political science, but can be published in some of the journals of public administration. For instance, here, this was my first journal where I published in my article. It's a journal of public administration, Administratio Publica. It's a very good journal. There's also this one. It's called Africa Insight. I think it's an international journal. I think it's an African journal, but I'm sure both colleagues they know this journal. But I think it is housed by one of the South African universities. Also, it's a good journal. I think it's an interdisciplinary journal. So what I'm saying is that also do try to cross over to other journals of other disciplines. I don't think that is something that can be criticized when you apply for promotion. Yeah, I think that's that, colleagues, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And then finally, Prof Ndzendze, do you have any responses for Raymond and Sibashle?
No, I think the colleagues have covered it all quite well, but I just want to make a larger sort of contextual. South Africa is a great country, but sometimes I feel as though it's punching below its weight in terms of so sometimes I look at terms of contents of journals, and I won't see a single South African name there. So it's good that we're having this discussion with emerging scholars, so that you can turn the tide. I think South Africa is so great; it's got so much potential, and let's write, because especially in our discipline, in politics, international relations, public administration, history, it means taking charge of your country's destiny, producing ideas that will shape policy in some way down the road, and we can't, in a sense, outsource our thinking. So I think it's it's existential for me that all of us here just do our bit, and more than our bit, and just publish. It's a matter of national interest for me. Thank you, Chair.
Prof Breakfast, I will allow you 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted just to make this point. It's also important because sometimes you can be carried away. It's one of the mistakes that I made in the beginning. Don't publish too much in one journal. That is not, in my opinion, it's not a good academic practice. That maybe because you think, hey, these people, maybe, I don't know, you think that it's, a friendly place and so on. That is not right. Publish in different journals because that is important. Please don't make the same mistake that I made in the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so I will quickly wrap up. Before we go, I do want to advertise SAAPS a little bit and encourage you, if you're not a member, to become a member of our association. We do have 4 membership categories. You can become an associate, a full institutional, or get student membership. In terms of our membership, there has access to publications, especially to Politicon, which has been referenced quite a lot during our conversations. So please do definitely join us. You can find more information about us at https://saaps.org.za/. Finally, I would like to again really thank our panelists for being a part of today's session. It's been an honor, a privilege to be sitting virtually amongst, accomplished scholars who have gone through the same journey that we are also going through, who've struggled and who found their way and who've become really successful, renowned, influential, and well-known within not only South Africa, but also regionally and globally. I think that all of us can say that we've been enriched by your insights and your valuable contributions as to how we can sort of navigate this publishing and this writing, sphere that we're in, and hopefully also be able to make contributions that are read and cited by other people, and also be on these types of platforms in a couple of years to come, giving our own advice. So thank you again to all 3 of our professors for their time and, their knowledge and their expertise. We really do appreciate it. To our audience, I thank you all for being present and for engaging with us with all of your questions, and also just listening to, the thoughts and reflections from our panel. We really do appreciate it, and we hope that we can see you in our next installment on this professional development series. So from us at SAAPS, we'd like to really thank you all again for being a part of it. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon, colleagues, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chair. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.